Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture and the rogues who create them every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Wave Podcast and Twitch.tv/Rogue Wave Podcast. Download our podcast immediately following the live stream on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. Search Rogue Wave Podcast or go to roguewavepodcast.com to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Tonight, Wonder Woman pushback again. Bring on the virtual con season. Biggest June blockbusters of all time. And X-Men Blue versus Gold, the final debate. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always joined by my co-host extraordinaire, the Lord of the live stream himself, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How are you doing today, sir?
It's another Wednesday.
Wednesday's good. So I got to tell you, I experienced my get off my lawn moment, I guess. No, maybe not get off my lawn moment. I don't think that's the right term. You
are the perpetrator though, right? You're the screamer.
It was one of those. I've slowly morphed into this adult over the last several years, essentially, of trying to fight it as much as possible.
Terrible when that happens. Terrible.
But you know, like when your parents would get upset about, like a bill would come or something would come that wasn't expected, and they'd be like, "Ah," and you're a kid, and you're like, "Oh, Dad, like, what's the big deal?" Or like, "Mom, like, I don't get why you're so stressed out over this or that." So, a couple weeks ago, my DVR wasn't working, so I contacted Verizon, and the woman was very nice on the phone, and she fixed my DVR. But she's like, "I'm going to give you a complimentary upgrade in internet." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I mean, everything's good. My price is fixed. Like, is this going to raise my bill?" No, it's not. And I get this email confirming, and the price is up. It literally says like it's like a different price. And I said to her, "Look, this email doesn't look right. It looks like it's more money." "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not going to affect your bill." I go, "Okay."
How does more money not affect your bill? That literally is your bill.
Right.
How does that?
I knew it, and I knew it. I knew it when I hung up with her. I'm like, I'm gonna have to call Verizon back.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to fix this. And
because that technician was quitting, and she said, "I'm gonna screw somebody before walking out of the door," and that's how that happened.
As predicted, I get my bill, and it's $100 more. $100 more. And so I call up the very lovely customer service rep at Verizon, and I say, "Look,
lovely. Nice.
She was a very, very nice. And I go, "Can you fix this?" And she says, "No, I can't." And I started, "What do you mean I can't fix it? That person should be fired." "Well, didn't you know when it got sent to you?" "She told me not to worry about it. It wasn't good." "Well, why would she say that?" "I don't know. You've got to put your supervisor." and I calmed down for a second, and I always do this. This has happened a couple times, but it was really apparent to me. I said, "Look, I know you didn't do anything wrong. I know it wasn't you that I dealt with, but you got to fix this because someone in your company messed up."
Yeah.
And I might not have used the word messed.
Yeah.
Bing.
You don't have to bing. Nobody said it. You're binging people for thinking it.
Yes.
You're being thought police about it. Don't be thought police about it.
Yes. So
did you fix it? Did you get it fixed?
Yeah, I got a supervisor on. Very lovely woman. Name is Susan, in the Massachusetts office, and she got me the credit, and she got me close. So now I'm paying $5 extra a month.
That's
for
livable.
The exact. Probably, I don't know if they gave me. I don't know if they gave me the same service that I had, or down, or kept me with the upgraded. I don't care. Like, I'm like, $5 I can deal with. $102 a month more for something I didn't ask for nor need. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was my dad. Like, I was literally my dad.
That's funny. My transition into adulthood comes when I don't know how old I was, but I was at a party.
Yeah.
And someone rolled out a birthday cake, and I was like, "Oh, that looks rich." Like I was anticipating indigestion.
Yeah.
Instead of oh my God, cake! I was like, that looks a little And I was like, that's a bit much for me. And I forewent the cake, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm old. You know,
Yeah.
I waited. The joy of eating cake versus the misery
Yes.
of dealing with it turning to lead in my stomach in the coming hours, and the desire not to be miserable later outdid the desire to be satisfied right then and there. And I'm like, I'm an adult. It's nothing I can do about it. Next up, gray hair.
All right, let's kick off another episode of the Rogue Wave podcast. We call this segment Rogue Rage, all the rage in the pop culture world. Not a lot of rage, just a lot of movies being shifted around again. Tenet.
Yeah, because ain't nothing happening, man. Nobody's making any damn movies right now.
Matrix 4. I mean, there's hope. Let me read off the story, and then there is hope. Tenet, Wonder Woman, Matrix 4 release dates shifted. Christopher Nolan's Tenet has been delayed 2 weeks only to July 31st. It has been set to open the $200 million tentpole on July 17th. Nolan, a devotee of the cinematic experience, has been adamant about sticking to a July date in hopes of providing a boost for theaters ravaged by the coronavirus pandemic. So while Tenet is moving, Nolan and Warner Brothers aren't giving up the mid-July date entirely. And they're also putting out Inception, which will be made available to movie theaters that are opening up. Meanwhile, on a separate note, I think I just read this morning how a lot of theaters are mid-July is like the mark for them to open, even like end of June. So we will have some theaters. They'll be at like 25% occupancy based on different states. And, you know, I hope they can make enough business doing that, but, you know, we're hoping. But
Tenet's eternal.
What's that? Yeah, well, you know,
we're eternal.
You know, we want to be safe, but we also want our favorite institutions to still be here when it is eventually safe, because it will eventually be safe. Tenet's shift also saw Warner's make another major scheduling change. Wonder Woman 1984 on the move again, shifting the superhero sequel's release date out of the summer into October. So October 2nd will be the new date. Disney's Mulan is now the first major studio release on the calendar. It is, I think, July 10th, I think, is Mulan, but I don't have that exact date.
Yeah, I don't even. That'll be interesting.
The thing that gets me, and real quick, Godzilla vs. Kong.
Godzilla vs. Kong is gotten. That movie is getting shafted, man. It's just getting kicked around like a football.
Well, that's 2021 now, May. Matrix 4 is now 2022. Wow. So definitely a lot of different shifts. The thing that just doesn't puzzle me, but when I start to think about it, you know, really gets me is the fact that like this stuff is already done. Like, you know, like that's the part that actually, like, it's not as if, you know, they're restarting productions on TV shows that weren't able to finish and movies that were in mid-production. This stuff is literally in the can, just waiting to be seen by people. As a creator, it would kill me. Like at this point, I'd almost be over it. I'd be like, I don't even care if it comes out at this point. I don't know. There's something. I mean, I would, but I don't know. Like, how would you feel if it was like your, you know, based on your knowledge?
I'd be very frustrated, and absolutely no lie. I'd be very frustrated, but I don't know. What could I do about it?
I know.
You know? I would be annoyed, but it would be the worst kind of annoyed, because it's the kind of annoyed where there's no culprit. You know, there's no one you can actually blame for it. I wouldn't want my movie to be the first one out the door, and then, you know, it starts a whole new spike of, you know, cases of, you know, and then everything gets shut down again. I would want to be towards the tail end of that reopening, you know, let a couple other blockbusters open first and then ease in there. I wouldn't want to take the responsibility of it. But I totally would be frustrated.
Yeah, I think versus, like, let's say a bar or a restaurant opening where, you know, you have alcohol that comes into play. I think movie theaters can be strategically safer in terms of, if they're only giving 50% occupancy or 25% occupancy, checking temperatures at the door, making sure, like, social distancing is actually very easy to enforce in like a movie theater setting. I mean, it's again, and why would you? You when you go to the movie theaters, you don't want someone sitting next to you anyway that you don't know.
No,
like you'd prefer not to. So I think it's one of those venues that's a little safer than most.
It would be harder at a convention or something like that. You know, like New York Comic Con would be. Right. I mean, I don't care what anybody would tell you. Right. It would be virtually impossible to social distance, while traversing a giant convention. But a movie theater might be better. And people are, typically antisocial, so they would sit as far away from. It depends on the movie, though, because if it was a big deal movie, there's always going to be someone who's going to want the seat right next to you, regardless. Because they come in like. That's 5 like the urinal, right? After.
Like you go in and this is a guy thing. I'm only speaking for guys, obviously. You go in there's always some guy that comes like right next to you in the urinal, and you're like, "What are you doing?" There's a urinal like right over there. Like, can't you? But for some, there's always
that's a guy. Different. That's not quite what I mean. But it's the same. It's the same level of outrage. But
they wouldn't be allowed to sit next to you in a movie theater. In a urinal, anything goes. We've just traversed into different.
You did. I didn't.
I tried.
I stayed the course. You didn't.
Speaking of Comic-Cons, bring on the virtual Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con officially sets free virtual edition with Comic-Con at home. So it'll be the same dates that were previously the canceled Comic-Con were supposed to be held, July 22nd to the 26th. Plans for Comic-Con at home include an online exhibit hall, complete with everyone's favorite exhibitors offering promotions, specials, and limited edition products. And like the in-person event, there will be exclusive panels and presentations. I know a friend of the show, James Massia, actually texted me and he said DC has a Watchmen press release somewhere in their Comic-Con panel. So maybe there'll be news of a new Watchmen series with a different showrunner because Damon Lindelof said he wasn't going to do it. Maybe he will do it. Maybe all the Black Lives Matters protests have inspired him to continue the story of Watchmen, which really, if you watched it, I mean, put such a focus on what a lot of the stuff that Black Lives Matters is talking about. So maybe we'll get a second season of Watchmen. I have
if I were him, I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't. No, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I would hand it off to another showrunner. I would.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it because I mean, it's a miracle he got past the hate brigade the first time, and I'm not even talking about any particular hate group. I'm just talking about like the internet machine, because you're taking on a beloved, you're taking on a beloved previously established product, and then you're instilling it with a whole bunch of different politics, that even though Watchmen in itself is a very political book, political kind of in the opposite direction, right. So the fact that he was able to get the show out, do the show, have it be critically acclaimed. I don't think it was a ratings monster, but it was critically acclaimed.
It did well. It did well and also created a lot of buzz for HBO, which needed it after the Game of Thrones debacle. So it was. That's
true. So if I were him, I'd be like, drop the mic. I'm out of here. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
The other question is there going to be any big reveal at the virtual Comic-Con, at least from DC's standpoint? DC's making a lot of moves lately. They're becoming very independent with launching their brand. They just launched a virtual DC fandom, which will be in August. With no physical San Diego Comic-Con, many studios and entities are looking to create their own virtual conventions, and DC has stepped up to the plate with DC Fandom, a free fan experience. It'll be held Saturday, August 22nd, starting at 10 a.m. Fans will be able to hear announcements from WB Games, film and TV, and comics, as well as cast and creators from DC TV series and films like Aquaman, Batman, Batwoman, Shazam, Suicide Squad, Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, etc., etc. Watchmen too, and Wonder Woman 1984 is on the list. I mean, there's a longer list, but I don't want to. I'm just not here to read stuff off. They promise exclusive footage, never-before-seen footage, and a special kids and family-oriented area at the DCKidsFandom.com. There'll also be DC Uverse, featuring user-generated content, cosplay, and fan art. In addition, there will be DIY Wonder Woman 84 Golden Armor, and Batmobile kits. Exclusive merchandise, etc., etc. Yeah, so getting into the virtual con game now here. I have yet to attend a virtual con. There's been a few virtual cons that have, popped up. I know Wizard World is offering virtual experiences, but it's generally get your photo virtually taken with a celebrity, which I don't need. But
no.
But I haven't gotten into that as much. But I don't know. You think you're gonna pop on?
No,
I might.
I don't know what any of that means. There's a lot of stuff that talk about, and that's great. That the fact that they're going more and more digital and more interactive is fantastic, because monopolies are bad, and this and that, and being stagnant is bad, and not learning how to evolve into the new age is very bad. Change is good, and change is our cornerstone. Yada yada yada. However, I don't know what any of that which you read off means. So it would be a full-blown education, for me to log on and try to navigate through all that. I'm anticipating me.
Is that the get off my lawn?
Yeah, there's a total get off my lawn.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Do you think it's Warner Brothers who's pushing all this, this diversity of media, not diversity, not the hot button diversity, but the diversified portfolio of DC's outreach and their presence in the industry?
I don't know. It kicked off last week, though. We talked about it. They moved. They've now officially broken free of Diamond. I mean, maybe they're just finally.
That's what I'm talking about. That's one of the things I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying maybe this is just maybe that was the signal that they are finally really taking hold, because Marvel, at least from a studio, and even to an extent the comic book brand, seemed more unified, right? Anything that the Marvel Studios was doing, even just reining in all the TV shows, right? And then reflecting those TV shows in the comics, and reflecting those movies in the comics, things tailored a little bit more. It just created a more unified front. I know this is what you're asking, but again, I guess the answer is it seems as if Warner Brothers is finally, as opposed to being a typical Hollywood studio, which Marvel is not, is tightening the reins a little bit. Just a little.
Well,
they
have to. I mean, and their game is really messed up in comparison to the Marvel rollout, right? So,
well, I think it all spurred because of the AT&T buyout. When you have new ownership in there, that's when all of a sudden they'll come in and start doing. It's like
but
like
Man of Steel and Suicide Squad, stuff like that, were all before the AT&T buyout. So, I'm saying that the entire situation was a mess.
Yes.
For quite a while.
Yes.
So. Hopefully, maybe AT&T and Warner Brothers or whatever. Maybe that's going to maybe it's inspiring a sharpness of media presence, and awareness, so that they. I mean, they're sitting on Fort Knox, basically. They've got every golden age superhero character at their disposal. When you think of superheroes, you do think Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman before you think of Wolverine and Iron Man, usually. So at least for the last 50 years, up until this era, up until the DC. I mean, Avengers was a B list title.
Yeah.
Until Marvel came up, and they didn't have, because I guarantee if they had the X-Men license, it would have been the X-Men that they tried to launch with, instead of having to elevate the Avengers, right? Absolutely. I'm glad it happened because recognition for the Avengers and Marvel having more than just one franchise is a revelation to everybody. But it's high time for DC to do something with their gold mine that they have there.
No, it's really true. Final story: legendary Batman writer Denny O'Neil passes away at the age of 81. He was best known for his work on Batman, including writing Batman, Detective Comics, Legends of Dark Knight, as well as editing DC's Batman titles. He, editor Julia Schwartz, and artist Neil Adams are credited for guiding the Dark Knight back to his darker roots after a period of campiness after the success of the 1960s Batman TV series. Alongside Adams, O'Neil also reinvigorated the characters of Green Arrow and Green Lantern by pairing them up as best friends and hard-traveling heroes who ventured the country righting wrongs while exploring complex issues of politics and social justice. One of the first comic book runs to do so in that way. I mean, the Speedy was a junkie. Speedy was a junkie was a big, big thing. during their run. So it was sad. On a personal note, I actually got to meet and sit down with Denny O'Neil, and he was going to be a guest on our podcast last year until something, his health actually kind of deteriorated, and he was unable to do that. So thanks to Jim McLaughlin for connecting us, and it was a real treat to personally engage with him. And 81, it's a good life. He'll be remembered for sure.
Definitely. It's not, you can't really overstate his contributions.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, you can't really contextualize what he meant in a couple of sentences. But
yeah,
it's a tremendous loss. It really is.
Yeah. So, all right. When we come back, it's June and there's no movies out. So we are going to dig back into the Junes of yesteryear to find the definitive biggest blockbuster of all time when we return. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave Podcast, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Wave Podcast. Go to RogueWavePodcast.com to subscribe. All right. So I kind of insinuated it last segment. We've got no movies. It's not a secret. It's not something that is unknown. We are barely getting comic book content back, but that's slowly coming. And we've got a good month to go before all this, kind of dives in. So I thought it was kind of cool. I found this article in Forbes. I got to be honest with you. What's really great is not only is there no content, but people who write about content are also lacking content. So they're coming up with ideas. And I was like, I wonder what the best June blockbuster was. And lo and behold, really literally like last week, Forbes, Scott Mendelson from Forbes.com wrote an article, the biggest June blockbusters. Now, his terminology for biggest is money made, okay? And he actually picked out the movies that made the most money in June and adjusted for inflation. I'm going to list you some of the stuff that he wrote, but I'm going to give you a criteria. I tried to find things that fit into our comic book movie realm to put against each other, okay? You tell me if this is a good list. First of all, the number one June blockbuster of all time is Jaws. Inflated for box office, inflation adjusted box office, $1.2 billion is what it made. It made $260 at the box office in 1975, which, according to his math, comes out to $1.2 billion. Followed by E.T., classic movie, which made $1.1 billion. So Jurassic Park followed that at adjusted to $742 million. Followed by our first entry into this.
Seems like a common denominator between the three of those.
I didn't even think about that. You mean they all took place in the? No, I'm just kidding. It's Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. Yes.
I couldn't even think of an alternate to what you were saying. Like on the screen. I was trying desperately.
I know. I heard you try.
You mean I was like blue? Is the color blue in it? No, it's not. They all played. No.
Well, they all feature non-human.
There you go. Yeah, that's true.
Superstars or whatever. Because the T-Rex became a superstar, and E.T. certainly became a superstar, and Jaws was the star of that movie.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. You were much better at completing the joke than I was.
No.
It worked out good in that case. First entry into our tournament is Raiders of the Lost Ark. That adjusted to $715 million.
Jesus Christ. You just called it the Spielberg tournament.
I know, right? You ready for this, though?
Yeah.
Jurassic World is next, 2015. Here's the first non-Spielberg entry on the list, he writes. Although Spielberg was a producer, and the film's initial success is based on the Jurassic Park trilogy. That was $704 million. All right, here's the first non-Spielberg. Lion King. It's also animated, $702 million. Grease followed that up. And then in the next entry in our list, Ghostbusters made $638 million. So that is for adjusted box office. So right now in our little tournament we're going to do in this segment, we have Raiders of the Lost Ark, Ghostbusters, because they are comic book centric films. They've had adaptions made or whatever the case might be, and it's close enough for us. Harrison Ford, Star Wars, good enough crossover. Cleopatra, which we're not going to do, but that was in 1963. Made a ton of money at the box office. Incredibles 2, we don't do the animated, so we're not going to do animated, but Incredibles 2 made the list at this point, followed by Psycho, the very famous Alfred Hitchcock film. Number 3 on our little tournament, Batman, 1989. Made $251 at the box office, inflated for or adjusted for inflation, $573. And then finally on our list, and there's another one that could have made it, which was Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon, but let's just keep it to 4. Wonder Woman, $413 million in 2017. Only the adjustment for inflation is $419 million. So the dollar has gone up $6 million since 2017. So we got Batman versus Wonder Woman versus Ghostbusters versus Raiders of the Lost Ark. And we can do this one of two ways, and I'm going to throw this out to you. Do you want to just pit the best non-comic centric or comic started movie versus the comic started movie? So we have two champions, Raiders versus Ghostbusters and Batman versus Wonder Woman, to see which one is the June representative, or do you want to just put them all in a big mash and fire them up? What do you think?
Put them all in a big mash.
All right, big mash it is. Big mash it is. I threw this question on Facebook, first of all. The thing I love about this, everyone's like, well, it's obviously Raiders. And then the next person down's like, well, it's obviously Ghostbusters. Well, how's it even a question? It's Batman. Wonder Woman was such a cultural achievement. So everyone kind of had this look of that was the dumbest question, and they all had different answers. So, or at least the look of, however, whatever you can look on social media.
Right.
Throwing it out to you.
Whatever face you want to apply to it.
Right. It just seemed like the response was of course it's this, but there was all 4 different answers. Actually, I got very few Wonder Woman. Very few. And mostly Batman, mostly Raiders, and mostly Ghostbusters, which maybe just means that I'm old and all my Facebook friends are old. So I don't know. Not exactly sure. Throw out there, which one is your undisputed champion in this category?
And the category is, can you redefine it?
Best June blockbuster.
Jaws.
No. Jaws not in this one.
What?
I just, you don't listen to me at all, do you?
No.
You complain about my setting up stuff, but meanwhile, every time
the setup was really long and then kind of extensive, and you were all over the place with it. You didn't. I was
not all over the place. I said, look, I'm going to list all the movies based on this Forbes, but I'm going to pick the ones that are the closest to our realm of comic book.
But you don't think Jaws is closest to our realm of comic? You didn't tell me what was excluded from it.
I didn't have to, because I told you what was included. I told you it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. I told you it was.
Why is Raiders of the Lost Ark included, but not Jaws?
There's been comic book adaptions of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones. He had TV series, so it kind of spawned into other mediums.
However, though, we do comics, movies and pop culture, right?
Understood. But then,
and Jaws was the first summer blockbuster.
I agree. Yes.
Why wouldn't that make our list?
Because I wanted four titles, and that's what I want to do. Look, Batman and Wonder Woman have to be in it, no matter what, right? Because that is really in our wheelhouse. Ghostbusters and Raiders of the Lost Ark are 2 movies we have talked about extensively on the show before. There's a history of vetting them and including them. We've never once talked about Jaws. Nor would we. It's a shark movie. It's an underwater movie. There is nothing even remotely related.
It's pop culture. It's a pop cultural icon. You say pop culture in the byline of things. Fine.
Raiders, I think, fits into this realm of what constitutes it. Ghostbusters definitely does. There were comic books. There was cartoon series. There was, I don't know. I think those 4 to me. Do you want to include Jaws? I'll include Jaws. I won't include him in the promo material though for the show.
I'd say Jaws. If you're going to include Jaws, I had another answer if you weren't going to include Jaws, but since you included it, we don't need the other answer.
Well, I'm going to get your other answer too. I'm going to say this is the Hassan with the asterisk next to it. His response. He basically went outside the rules and picked a winner, and Jaws is the winner. Here's my argument against Jaws. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Being the best, not being good or bad. I mean, I think we're all in agreement. The 4/5 films that were chosen. You could even throw E.T. in there then if you're really going to start, just mocking my rule system altogether. Is these are all great films, so that's out out of the docket. But the best one, I think, rewatchability has to be part of it, right? Like if I'm grading on rewatchability, how Jaws is one of those movies where you see it.
Are you about to tell me that Jaws has no rewatchability?
I didn't say it has no rewatchability, but
I think you're going to tell me it has limited. Oh my God!
The impact.
Don't say these things.
I'm going to say it. The impact of Jaws is when you first watch it. I think the impact is obviously when you first watch it. I think there are moments in it that are timeless. When he's telling the story on the boat to Roy Scheider and. He goes into detail about
on the boat to Roy Scheider.
No, who was the character? Who was the guy? What's his face? I would have prepared for Jaws, but it wasn't going to be part of my thing. The actor he recently passed away. He's the boat captain.
Robert Shaw.
Yes.
Quint.
Yes, that's it. I want to say Quinn, but I knew that wasn't right. But I'd rather not say anything than be wrong.
I understand that. I understand. We were gonna wish we did that for the whole segment.
No, because I prepared for Raiders, Ghostbusters. So I'm a little more prepared.
All right, okay, fine. You're wrong. You're dead wrong. But let's just take Jaws out.
His speech on the boat was great. That's a rewatch.
It's about the Indianapolis. He called the Indianapolis. Right. Stop talking. Stop. You're outing yourself as a LARPer in movie trivia.
Sharply vague.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, his speech about the Indianapolis, I think is one of, to me, like that's that, and maybe shooting Jaws at the end is always one of the most memorable parts for me.
You mean the rest shooting of it, canister that exploded and killed Jaws?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Sorry, spoilers.
Yes.
45 years ago. No, 35 years ago?
35 years ago. No, 1970.
1975.
75.
Yeah, 45.
Yeah.
Damn it. I wish my math was wrong there. But overall, I'm not. I wouldn't sit through and watch Jaws all over again. I'd watch Raiders all over again in a heartbeat. I'd watch Ghostbusters all. But
that's based on your.
I know
your notions of rewatchability, right? So I mean, so how am I supposed to judge what the best?
Hear yours. I want to hear your criteria for rewatchability.
But you've already
compare and contrast. And
I gave you my criteria. You didn't. You rejected it because of a wheelhouse. And so now you want me to...
No. We're diving into it. I rejected the notion of Jaws being part of this discussion, but then I included it. I'm being very inclusive on that. And now now we're diving into Jaws, even though I was not prepared to do so.
We don't really even need to dive into Jaws. It was the first blockbuster. It's the first movie. It's a movie that started... I mean, we do not know movies. In an age before all of them were shipped to be monster hits for the studio, right? We don't understand a world prior to that, do we? So, we live in a world now where movies can make $400 or $500 million and still be considered a flop. That's the world we live in now.
Right.
It's a completely different world. It's the end game for the world that Jaws started. So that's why I would include, if we're talking about the best summer blockbusters, the best June blockbusters, that it would have to be Jaws. If you're talking about favorites,
best June blockbusters, yes. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I
know you said summer, then you said June. Go ahead. I don't pay attention to you either, apparently.
No. It's blatantly obvious.
We're being very honest in this discussion here. There's a lot of stuff coming out here. I like this. This is a therapy session.
If you're talking about favorites, right? We're talking about favorites to Ghostbusters and Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Batman and Wonder Woman,
right? And we're talking about Batman 1990 or 1989.
1989, correct? Yes.
Yeah, Batman, Wonder Woman. My favorite out of those has to be. That's hard. That's very hard. Raiders of the Lost Ark. However, also Ghostbusters.
I'll say this
because they're two different categories of movie, right?
Yeah.
But they're both, back then when you were a kid, both movies were thrill rides. You got a lot more action than you expected out of Ghostbusters. You know. Almost maybe perhaps comparable action to Raiders of the Lost Ark, but with a lot less Nazi killing.
I'm gonna say something that's controversial, just so we can eliminate one.
You already did controversy overload.
I think Wonder Woman will be eliminated from this, only from the sense of Wonder Woman is an accomplishment at the time, right? I think it's very, very dependent on the time of when it was released in a socio-political way. Not to take away from its importance for that, we're going to look back, but I think we're always going to look back on Wonder Woman as a cultural achievement more so than a film achievement. Although there's a huge achievement for pulling Wonder Woman off and pulling her off in such a way that is
in this. Stop using the word "we."
Okay, we as a show.
You
I think
as the one of the two show hosts.
I'm not even saying we in the sense of us. I'm saying like we as a whole, as a society.
Can't speak for that, though. How do you speak for that?
I'm just forecasting 10, 15 years from now. That's all. I'm doing so. Look, the reason I'm doing so, though, too, is it is the most current film, right? It's 2017. It's still fresh in our minds. The other three movies that we're talking about all took place in the 1970s and 1980s. 1980s completely for all of them in the 80s. Sorry. All the films we're talking about in the 1980s. Jaws was 70s. We're not including Jaws in this discussion. So I'm merely saying that the way that we look back on those films already right now are influenced by the fact that 40 years have passed or 35 years have passed or 30 years have passed. Wonder Woman's still very fresh. So I'm
certainly feels like 30 years since 2017, though.
It does. So I'm merely saying that I think that the context in which it was released, I think, is going to play a huge role in how people actually view the film, no matter what. I think it's tied to that.
This is why I never play your games. This is why I don't do these things.
What?
Because I don't even know where we are now. You're all over the map. You're taking things on. You're adding things. You're taking them off.
I'm saying we eliminate her from the.
Why? What? You didn't even get a full answer from me for. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just saying.
This is insane. This is insanity.
It's not insanity.
Why'd you add it on the list then? Why didn't you think that through before you even added it on the list?
No, it should be on the list.
But you just took it off the list.
I didn't take it off the list. I eliminated it from the competition.
That's taking it off the list.
No,
what's the list?
It's like no. Being in the competition is the list. Not winning the competition is being eliminated.
And you took it off the.
That's all. I didn't take it off the list.
It's not in the competition if you took it off the list.
Yeah, but I'm saying it entered the competition and it lost. It loses because as a film, I don't think it stacks up as well against the other three films, in my opinion. I think it's always going to be tied to the cultural significance rather than because that third act just always falls apart in terms of the movie.
Always belittling. All of them have really bad third acts. Raiders of the Lost Ark has a terrible third act.
Why is that a terrible third act?
Because Indiana Jones is completely inconsequential to the entire third act of the film.
I know that is the popular internet terminology.
It's
and
not
that's
internet. If you know movies, if you know stories, if you watch the story, it's like he really doesn't do it. Now it doesn't need him to be. It doesn't require him to be an active participant, but it is a phenomenon.
Well,
in our John Wick, kind of milieu that we have now, where. The main character just, hurricanes his way through the entire story. blowing everybody away.
Let me break that internet argument for a second, and just follow me on the train because I don't know if this is right. I don't know if it actually breaks the argument, but if he doesn't show up to save Marion from the bad guys, right, in the sequence at the beginning, toward the beginning of the movie, it's possible they still wouldn't have ended up with the medallion that gets them into the Well of Souls. So he does actually impact the film from that, just because of that.
I said the third act.
No, I know, but the third act only happens because they find the Well of Souls and they find the location. They might be digging in the desert for the rest of the movie if he doesn't show up, because they might have gone to Marion's. It doesn't mean that. And Marion was a very strong female character. She was someone who, I think was, definitely not a damsel in distress. I think could have thwarted them in their efforts. It might have gotten her killed, but it also might have protected the medallion from getting into their clutches. If the medallion never gets in their clutches, they never find the Well of Souls. They just dig in the desert for the rest of the movie. They don't accomplish anything. That third act never even happens. So Indiana Jones does impact, maybe not positively, I don't know, but does impact him, his just again, going that internet argument.
I just said he doesn't really do anything in the third act. I didn't say he had no impact. I just said he literally does nothing in the third act of the film, which is what I said.
He launches that bazooka. Yeah, okay. Well, I don't listen.
He doesn't.
Oh, you're right. He
threatens them with the bazooka.
Right.
He does not launch it.
Yeah,
and then he surrenders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some French guy talked him into surrender.
Dr. Jones! Do it! I don't know if that's the
Send it back to God.
But I did get the French accent down pat.
Good God.
Friend of the show, David Rosenberg, he Facebooked us and said it's Batman because Batman had the most expectations going.
He's not on the show. Heck with him.
I said friend of the show. Said because it had the most expectations and actually delivered. Right?
Oh my God! This is all subjective. This all this subjective nonsense. Nonsense.
It's not nonsense. Batman is based
because it is is objectively the first summer blockbuster. Non-subjectively, objectively, the first summer blockbuster wins. Everything else, though valid for discussion, are not caveats as to whether it could be the best or the worst in this category. Not by the metrics that we're measuring. If you're talking about Batman, or you're eliminating Wonder Woman because it's too recent, or
essentially that's what I'm doing with Wonder Woman. Yeah, I think
it's. I mean, come on, man. I mean, what? How is this game played? Literally, how do we play this game? That? Because I'm the one who's always in the middle of playing the game, and I need to know how the game is played. You're always here's the game. Bing. Oh, that's not the rule. All right, here's a new rule. Okay,
I always set up the rules.
Okay, that doesn't work.
Rules, but then the actual discussion takes on a life of its own. I mean, what can you do? You brought Jaws into the discussion. Jaws wasn't even the rules.
The rules are terrible. Your rules are terrible. Your game
sucks as much as I do.
I did not. I am
all right, the
perfect.
Winner's Ghostbusters. No,
as long as you added in that laugh at the end of it.
What do you think of the idea that Batman had more to live up to, though?
I don't even understand that. What do you mean he had more to live up to in comparison to what?
Both Raiders and Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but I mean that was 5 years earlier,
right?
Yeah,
they're not based off of anything. So there's no history to it. You can almost go in with Van Helsing.
Well, no. Ghostbusters is, not really. But Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, both Ghostbusters is based off of Ghost Breakers or the old Ghostbusters, right?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yes, I mean, kind of in its own way. And it also took its title, though the concept is very different.
Yeah,
and Indiana Jones is based off of the old 1930s.
Yeah, but it's not based off of material that would seemingly have a fan base built in, like Batman, right? And Batman also had weightier expectations because of the 1960s TV series.
All right.
I'm just.
So
I'm
what you think?
you,
so Batman is better because it had more. It had more writing on it.
Is it better because it had? It better?
I know, but I'm clarifying the question by re-asking you the question.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question is, Batman had more pressure on it.
Correct.
Than two other movies that no one knew anything about that actually had to establish their own audiences. I mean, is that the logic? Because that's backwards logic.
I asked the question, which you just answered. So you're actually saying when you don't have an established audience, it's actually harder to
It can be construed as harder than to have a... Now, yes, there's a different kind of pressure from something that already has an established fan base, and you're going to do a new addition to it, or you're going to do a new iteration of whatever that thing is. See Star Trek Discovery.
Sure.
See Disney Star Wars. Okay, obviously there are ways that road can be perilous.
Yeah,
that's fine. However, when you're trying to start something from scratch, there are more pitfalls because people might completely ignore what you're doing.
Right.
See the AO versus Stranger Things.
Right.
Okay. So obviously there are ways there are 8 million ways to die, and I think it's more perilous to be completely unknown and to arrive on a scene than to be trying to adapt something that has already been pre-established.
Yeah.
Because theoretically, when you're adapting something already pre-established, one would hope, and this is an oversimplification of the situation, one would hope all you'd have to do was be respectful to the material.
Right.
And then people may or may not, give you a pass on it.
Right.
But starting something brand new, that's much harder, I think.
Here's something I'll say for process of elimination purposes also, at least in this discussion. What did this movie spawn? How many sequels? What kind of transmedia? Ghostbusters doesn't stack up against Batman and doesn't stack up against Raiders of the Lost Ark in the sense of the sequels, right? It only had one sequel, and that sequel was not really that well received. It did have the cartoon series, though, which was pretty impactful. In fact, the cartoon series, I could argue on its own.
But we don't do animation.
No, I know, but I'm saying we're not reviewing the cartoon series, but I'm saying the impact the cartoon series had, I think, only increased the legacy of the original movie, right? It didn't take away. I think it actually made it. I think it made it even better, right? But it did not end up spawning successful sequels. We've had 2 sequels since then. Some people are partial to Ghostbusters 2 for whatever reason, but I think you could easily say the Batman sequels and the Raiders of the Lost Ark sequels were better, films, right? I would say better films than
you think Batman Returns and then Batman Forever are better than Ghostbusters 2? Are you kidding?
No, but I think Batman. You think Batman? You think Ghostbusters 2 is better than Batman Returns?
That Batman Returns and Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
I'm a big fan of Batman Forever, so yeah, Ghostbusters 2 was like it got, I don't know, with the slime and it just, I don't know, Vigo and the painting. It was all right.
Yeah, it's weird that you keep asking me my opinion, yet you keep giving your opinion as to why my opinion is wrong. It's
I'm not saying
phenomenon. Yeah. It's the strangest phenomenon.
No, I'm merely saying why I disagree with your opinion. Not that your opinion... Look, nothing you say is wrong except everything, and I'm only saying I disagree with it. Not that you're wrong, but you are. So...
I know, but here's the thing. Contextually, you will ask me a question, I will answer it, and then you will tell me that is incorrect because of your opinion.
I will literally tell you why I disagree with it.
No,
you don't disagree.
You don't phrase it
that way,
though.
We're trying to get the cream to rise to the top here, right? We're trying to
You eliminated most of the cream on the list for your strange criteria that you keep changing in the middle of the damn game.
No. The criteria to enter the competition was solid and set. Okay? That was set. That was established. Now, there is no criteria.
Is this segment over?
I'm trying to figure out the criteria as we go.
Is this segment over? Jaws.
I go Raiders.
Of course you would.
Chime in on the Facebook feed. It was probably one of our best. That segment fell apart in the third act. All right, when we come back, more debate. X-Men Blue versus
no more debate.
When we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Look, Hassan, I got to tell you.
What?
All right.
Tell me.
I got to tell you. When an actor
needs
to give a performance, they need to dig down deep, right? That the physical and mental toll it could take on them to do that. Now, James Marsters, I remember being at a convention when he was giving a talk. He's like, I had to be in therapy, to give a certain performance. I had to dig deep into this other, thing to drive the emotion to give the best performance. You might get frustrated by my segments and my rules, but it's digging deep. You're giving the best performance. Ultimately, isn't that? You're giving to the fans. Fan. I think we have one.
Yeah. Those three guys.
Hey, one is a plural. All right.
One is
not a plural. Two is a plural.
We
are big fanboys of comics and graphic novels, and every week we like to bring you the inside info on the source material. Will make its way onto the large and small screen. We call this segment Spitting the Racks.
Spin the rack, spin that rack.
X-Men Blue versus X-Men Gold. Which 90s team is officially better? I gotta be honest with you. Lack of content has made us better. It just goes to show, like, the shows that have no content can't do what we do. Instead,
I've decided not to say anything for the rest of the segment.
Well, no, but this is a good one. So, again, because of lack of content, this is from CBR.com, and because I actually happen to be rereading all my 90s comics right now. They did an article recently, I think it was yesterday, X-Men Blue versus X-Men
That's pretty
Gold.
recent. That's a good
90s team, but it'll be forever tied into the time that it was released. Now, which 90s team is officially better? Revealed. They actually reveal it. So they give a definitive answer as to which is better. This is not a debate.
God.
But I thought this is kind of cool.
Everybody loves a binary choice.
Yes.
Okay.
Dubbed the Blue and Gold teams, both squads found themselves under the command of a seasoned X-Men leader. Storm led the Gold team, while the Blue squad served under Cyclops. The latter team featured Wolverine, Psylocke, Beast, Rogue, Gambit, and Jubilee. Cyclops often bristled against the more rebellious and renegade elements of the team. Meanwhile, Storm led an experienced group of superheroes. Her X-Men Gold team consisted of Jean Grey, Colossus, Iceman, and Archangel. Rounding out the squad was Bishop, an XSE officer who was introduced a few issues into the run of X-Men Gold. This is my dawn of X-Men era, by the way. This is the Jim Lee, Will Portacio. Was it Portacio, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought.
Or Portacio.
Look at me not butchering it. John Byrne scripted a few. Scott Lobdell came in and ended up scripting both. And it kind of led up to the exodus of said artists into the Image Comics realm. But right before this this was like,
Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont's
yeah. I think it's almost this is almost one of those arguments that has no argument to it, right? X-Men Blue is just a better team, right? It's a more interesting book. I can share with you what they say, but I mean, what's your take?
Well, X-Men Blue was X-Men, whereas X-Men Gold was Uncanny X-Men, correct?
Well, yes, but I mean like the X-Men teams, yeah.
I'm just separating them by title, though, right? That's how they were delineated to us, right? One of them came out in X-Men, and the other one came out in the Uncanny. Uncanny X-Men kept going, but then a new comic was started for the Blue Team, which was just called X-Men.
Yes. So which team is better? When use the better.
Which team is better? Oh, so terrible. I don't know. I'm tempted to say X-Men Gold because they were the Uncanny X-Men, and they kept the ball rolling. Storm was the leader of my X-Men from the 80s when I started reading the comic.
Yeah.
Right? Because Cyclops had led the X-Men up until before that. And then he had moved on to X Factor.
Yeah.
And so Storm took over as leader of the X-Men. So she was the leader all the way up until that point, as far as I was concerned, until they reconsolidated the teams, and now they have the super team, right, of the X-Men, right, the Dream Team,
right.
So following Uncanny X-Men, you still had Storm as the leader.
Yeah,
that was still my X-Men. I did like the Blue Team. I did like Cyclops, and then Wolverine's on the team and everything. So of course,
I feel like X-Men Blue had the better characters, right? Like, or the more popular ones anyway. At least they were more popular to me. I loved Gambit. I loved Psylocke. I loved Wolverine. I thought that was actually a pretty strong unit in terms of like popular characters. Cyclops.
Yeah, but I mean that's it's kind of the celebrity team. It's kind of like when you put together all these, So it's. I think they had more star power on that team, but I think there was more interesting things that happened on the Gold Team. You know
who was on the Gold Team
had better
that they don't mention, but he was there, and he's actually.
I think Chris
Claremont didn't write the Gold Team.
No, he wrote the Blue Team.
He wrote the first 3 issues of X-Men, which was both teams, technically speaking.
Yeah, and then didn't he write the Gold Team, and then
no, he was supposed to. He was supposed to.
So Jim Lee was writing most of that stuff.
Yeah, it was Jim Lee, Willis Portacio, and then at first it was John Byrne doing the scripts, and then Scott Lobdell came on and did it. I would also sit there and tell you, until Grant Morrison came on, Cyclops was kind of like a boring character. But I also kind of feel the same way about the entire X Factor team. Archangel to me was never that interesting. Iceman, people complain that they've kind of like retrofit the character now to be gay. I actually find that to be one of the more interesting things about Iceman, because he was never a very interesting character to me. So Bishop was great. Bishop was like that new character that you didn't know like who he was. The one character who was on that team, I guess not officially, I guess he kind of maybe he danced between both teams, but I would think he leaned more toward the Gold Team, was Forge. I love Forge. I don't know why. Forge to me is one of the best
because he made stuff, but he didn't really ever do anything.
I don't know. He just was always this like he could just build like a rocket ship, he
made stuff, but I mean but he was basically. But
that was his mutant power.
He was ancillary though. He moved from back and forth. He was basically at the Xavier School, like he was in a ground attendee at the Xavier School, so he worked in tandem with both teams.
He was like tech support. He was the IT team.
He built the Blackbird, and then he built the other Blackbird. He built Blackbird 2. Yeah. Which was even more sleek and Batmobile-y than the original Blackbird.
Yep.
So
this is what CBR said. From a storytelling perspective, there are more exciting developments and threats with the Blue Team than the Gold Team, along with a more distinctive and memorable cast. It doesn't hurt the Blue Team ended up being the blueprint for the team roster of the famous X-Men animated series, only with Jean Grey and Storm substituted in place of Psylocke. The dynamics of the Blue Team were always far more engaging than the Gold Team, giving them a clear edge in terms of memorability and excitement. So their criteria was memorability and excitement.
Yeah, okay.
I can't disagree.
Of course you can. Yes, bad ideas always like to flock together.
That's our show for tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Chime in on the Facebook feed. Go check us out on Spotify. Go check us on Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe. It really helps us out. Download all the new podcasts that you can. We got cool announcements coming up in 2 weeks. Actually, we'll announce some stuff next week. in preparation for 2 weeks from now. Next week, yeah, we're going to do it. We've been asked to. Batman Returns retro review. See you guys next week.
Rogue Wave.